And we are on. I want to say good evening to everybody and thank you for joining us for another powerful show dealing again with hip hop. Not the usual run-of-the-mill discussions, the gossip discussions. We ain't doing that here tonight. We are talking about hip-hop, how it affects the youth, who weaponized hip-hop, how they did it, when it happened. See, this is the kind of stuff you're really not going to get on too many podcasts. We ain't talking about who dating who messing with who got the most money. We ain't talking about that. We're talking about things that affect your children, things that have affected our generations. We are honored tonight to have our Militant Mind Media, sponsored by the Militant Mind Militia, Durham, North Carolina. Our brother, your brother, Brother Bernard Creamer, who is the author of books, children's books. He has a clothing line. He does a lot. So I'm going to let him introduce himself. But specifically, we're talking about his book tonight, Who Stole the Soul? The Weaponization of Hip Hop. See, a lot of y'all don't know what that hip hop was weaponized. A lot of y'all think that things just happen. When we say weaponized, we're talking about it was done on purpose to use a weapon against us. How in the world that we go from fighting the power to being the power we're supposed to be fighting? I'm going to say that again. How did we go from fighting the power to being the power we're supposed to be fighting? So I want to give a shout out to the Black Messiahs. I want to give a shout out to the Militant Mind Militia. I want to give a shout out to the Black Hoodie Brigade, Durham, North Carolina, and everybody watching worldwide. Brief introduction. What is the Militant Mind Militia? We're just spreading knowledge. If hip-hop has been weaponized, we have to weaponize knowledge. I'm going to say that again. If hip-hop has been weaponized, we have to weaponize knowledge. That's what the Militant Mind Militia is. Durham, North Carolina. Boots on the ground think tank. Everybody's talking about Project 2025. Ooh, what we going to do? Project 2025. We have the new Black Panther Party in Norfolk, Virginia in the house. Shout out to them. Everybody has talking about Project 2025 like they just started doing it yesterday. What we going to do about it? We're going to organize. So the Militant Mind Militia, boots on the ground think tank. Not just talking amongst ourselves, not just preaching to the choir, but having this knowledge directly connected to the street. So tag somebody. If you're watching this video live, or if you're watching the replay on our YouTube channel, Militant Mind Media, which will go up later tonight, tag somebody, especially the youth. We want the youth in here. Bring your children. Bring Ray Ray and Shaquana and all of them. Bring them, because this is going to be a powerful show. That being said, Brother Bernard Creamer, welcome to the show, brother.
Yes, sir. Once again, man, I appreciate you having me back on the platform. I appreciate the work you're doing in North Carolina as well. Definitely. I read your post. I see the work you're putting in. I'm sure you're making a huge impact down there.
A little bit.
One head at a time, man.
Yes, sir. So I want you to introduce yourself. I know we did a formal introduction. I want you to introduce yourself and anything you want to share with our watching viewers, our watching audience, our listening audience. And then we're going to get right into it. Connected dots. Who stole hip-hop? Who weaponized it?
All right, well, as you indicated, my name is Bernard Creamer. I'm an educator. I've been an educator for the past 26 years. I've taught and worked as an administrator in the public schools, some charter schools. In terms of organizations, the first organization I do most of the work with is Clear the Airwaves Project with my brother Kwabena. I'm also part of the Nubian Leadership Circle as well. So I'm affiliated with them, but I think I'm looking to put my foot in some other stuff out here in DC. But that's pretty much it. I've written a book, as you've already spoken about, Who Stole the Soul, The Weaponization of Hip Hop. A few years ago, I wrote that book. From hearing a bunch of lectures, from doing some research, from being in the classrooms and seeing the changes in the behaviors of our kids, and trying to figure out, what's going on, what's driving these behaviors, what's driving their thoughts, what's driving the words that come out of their mouths, and just watching the different, how can I put it, the different behaviors for the most part that we're getting from the boys and the girls. But in studying, I realized that it's bigger than hip hop. And so these are things that have happened with multiple cultural art forms that we produce. It didn't start with hip hop. They've done it to the cinema. They've done it with the TV shows. They've done it with other types of music, other genres of music that we created as well. So hip hop is just the latest iteration of them weaponizing our culture and using it against us, especially the minds of our youth.
Indeed. So shout out to Brother Kwabena. When we did the Militant Mind militia the first time 10 years ago, we did it for about a year. Kwabena was one of the heavy hitters. Very dedicated, brother. Dedicated shutting it down. Gary, Indiana. So shout out to Brother Kwabena. Who else is joining? Sister Veronica. Sister Veronica's in the house. She is the one who actually, because I give out books in the hood for free. So Sister Veronica actually purchased a whole bunch of your books.
What's up, Miss Ankrum?
The hood.
Yeah, she's a good sister. What's up, Veronica? I just call her Ronnie.
Yeah. So, and of course, you donated as well. I appreciate you, brother. So we put those books out there in the hood. Let's see, Brother Deke is also in the house. He was one of the early members of the first installation of Militant Mind Militia. He deals with hip hop in Boston. He has a collective in Boston that's dealing with hip hop and dealing with the same issues we're tackling. So, brother, without further ado, let's jump into it.
All right.
Give us your definition in the context of hip hop weaponization. What does that mean?
All right. Well, the base word is being weaponization, basically meaning action. But basically taking hip hop, our cultural art form, and using it as a weapon to basically help oppress us. To subjugate us, to disrespect us, to devalue us, to impact our relationships, to impact how we see one another, and to impact how the world sees us.
And you say that hip hop has been weaponized.
Yes, and let me say this too. I always have to preface by saying that I love hip hop, and that is the energy that pushed me to do this book. I still love hip hop. Hip hop is literally the soundtrack to my youth, to my childhood. And so to watch it go from what it was to what it is today, that impacts us, especially, brothers my age. And we're seeing the impact of it, especially if you're in the schools or in those trenches. But yeah, what was your last question? I'm sorry.
No, you're good, brother. You're good. I'm already thinking about my next question, but you answered that perfectly.
Okay.
Who weaponize hip hop against us, and when?
I would say that the distributors have the most power. We get caught up thinking it's labels because Jay-Z has a label or such and such has a label. The labels, all they are is basically the distributors giving some of the artists, their most popular artists, the power to hire other artists to do exactly what they do. So that's the distribution, basically putting foot soldiers on the ground, and you go hire some more soldiers to get on the ground to make some more of this music for us to distribute. But when I talk about who weaponized it would be the distributors. You're talking about Interscope, Columbia, Universal, Sony, Comcast. And when you look deeper into these distributors, those distributors are owned by overarching companies like Vivendi, Bertelsmann, some of those companies that are not even in this country, some of them. And they all have agendas that they've already had in play even before they weaponized hip hop. And they just saw hip hop as just another another vein they could use to basically get to the subconscious minds of our kids.
Mm-hmm.
So
and when we talk about the early years,
mm-hmm.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And when we talk about the early years, and you're talking about distribution, the thing was that, and you can watch movies like The Five Heartbeats or any of those movies about the early days of the music industry. The
mm-hmm.
thing that held over people's heads was, you can make the music, but how you going to get it in the stores?
Yep.
We can't stop you from making music, but how you going to get it in the stores?
Yeah,
and the
much
thing
like
about, go ahead, brother.
No, I'm sorry. It's not different at all from the drug game. And not to swell the conversation, but if you sitting on 20 kilos of dope that you just came up on and you don't have distribution, you're just sitting on 20 keys of dope and it has no value. So it's the exact same thing with you. You can have a trunk full of music, 10 CDs deep, but if you don't have distribution, the only people that are going to hear your music possibly is the hood. And so if you want to get rich and famous, you got to be plugged with a distro or a distributor. Mm-hmm. That's the name of the game. And that's TV, that's movies, that's music, that's anything. My T-shirts. If I wanted to really be out there, whatever, I could get plugged with a distributor, but I would probably have to dumb down my images and have to dumb down some of my messages too. That's just how it works.
Now, in the early days of hip-hop, the early days of the music industry, the early days of the music industry, you can't mention distribution without mentioning the mafia. And I'm going to give you my source. Fred Dannon's book, Hitmen. Fred Dannon's book, Hitmen. If you don't have Fred Dannon's book, you're missing out, because what Fred Dannon did in Hitmen, he traced the origin of the music industry. And one of the things that was tied to the music industry as far as distribution, because they owned the jukeboxes, they owned the so-called juke joints, the mafia. Mm-hmm. The mafia. That's why, allegedly, there are so many mysterious deaths in the music industry. We're talking about Sam Cooks. We're talking about many others who wanted not only their own distribution, but their masters. Mm-hmm. Mysterious deaths in the music industry. Pick up Fred Dannon's book. He just mentions that in passing.
What's the name of the book again?
Hitmen. Frederick Dannon, D-A-N-O-N. I usually have my sources as one book I couldn't get because I just had a militant mind militia meeting. And that's one book I didn't pull. But Fred Dannon has a book called Hitmen. And he goes into the origins of the music industry, the origins of the labels. And the one thing you will notice is a lot of times, just like the mafia, it's a family business. Mm-hmm. It's a family business. That's why when Black Dot, shout out to Black Dot. When Black Dot and Professor Griffin them start talking about the bloodlines of hip hop, that's what they're talking about. They're talking about specific bloodlines whereby the great grandfather passed it on to the grandfather, the father, the son, and so and so and so. Especially in the early years of the music industry. So when we're talking about distribution, it starts with the mafia, then it goes to the major entities, the Sonys, the Universals, the Warner Brothers, et cetera, et cetera. So continue, brother, if you want to talk about distribution some more.
Oh, that was all I was going to say about distribution. Now, that's an interesting point you made. You say it starts with the mafia. I definitely have read about the mafia's influence, deep influence, with anything that involved music, period, media, Vegas or what's that, Hollywood. There's a history there too. But I'm definitely gonna get this book. But as far as distribution, that's not something, again, like you just said, they don't talk about it much. And so we were basically caught up as kids thinking, Rockefeller, Bad Boy, that these cats had power. Just because they had these labels, and we thought that was ownership. And literally all it was is basically, to put it, I guess, callously, they were corner boys, for lack of a better word. That's literally all they are, is corner boys. If you own a record label, because the distribution basically decides what images and what messages are going to be parlayed through your music. They decide what artists are going to get approved to be signed to your label. You know, you can't just be signed an artist or whatever that they don't approve of. I remember a while ago, I want to say over a decade ago, Jay-Z was running his mouth and saying that he was going to start making conscious music. And I knew that was a lie when he said it, you know, because it's not up to you. Right. If you wanted to or not. You didn't get rich making conscious music. They didn't pay you $1 billion to make conscious music. They didn't give you access to all of the things that you pretended like you owned, putting out conscious music. And so in order for him to stay in their good graces, you're not going to turn around and spit in their face and just start running some conscious music, waking up the children again, the same kids that you put to sleep for the last decade or two.
And you hit on an interesting point with Jay-Z. What did he say? He said, I used to want to rhyme like common sense, but I started making money. I ain't rhyme conscious sense or something like that.
Yep. I remember that lyric.
Yeah, but that's a very interesting thing when you're talking about Jay-Z, because a lot of people don't know that Jay-Z came into the game. They say drug dealer, which is possible, but as far as hip hop, he came under a conscious cat. Jay-Z in 1988 came into the hip hop game under Jaz-O, who was part of the Nuwaubians under Dr. York.
I remember Jaz-O.
Jaz-O was a Nuwaubian. If you look at that first video, Dika, help me with this. That first Jay-Z, Jaz-O, excuse me, that first Jaz-O video, not Hawaiian Soul Food, we're not talking about it, so it'll be the second one. The name escapes me, but he has a video with Jaz-O when he's putting black leaders in the back and Dr. York in the back, Dr. Malachi York. So Jay-Z knows the originators. That's it. Thanks, Adika. See, it's good to have people to know hip hop in your corner. But but the originators, go on YouTube and look at the originators. You're going to see Jay-Z and Jaz-O in red, black, and green. Well, Jay-Z not so much. But Jaz-O in red, black, and green, you're going to have all these black leaders in the background and them kicking knowledge. The originators by Jaz-O. Check it out. Check it out. So, but yeah, Jay-Z is interesting. Also, I was going to go somewhere with that, but it escaped me. When will you say
something to do with Dame Dash?
No, it was about a book. Steve used to do a lot of work with Rockefeller, wrote a couple of books.
Not Paul Porter.
No. This was one of the industry cats, but it'll come to me. But we talked about hip hop being weaponized. What year would you say the weaponization of hip hop took place?
I would say, I want to say early 90s. My mind is foggy now. Again, it's late. I ain't read my own book in years, but between 88 and 92 is when it happened. And I want to say basically it coincided with Public Enemy, who had won they had four platinum albums. And it kind of came with it. They had 4 platinum albums. They were as popular as I don't know what, of course, I think you talked about it in your last show. The white kids were buying their music, as rebellion to their parents, but they were a platinum selling group. And so there was no reason whatsoever for them to be taken off the shelf and basically taken off the airwaves too, for us to have access to them. But right after they were taken down, gradually groups like NWA started to surface. And NWA got mega popular. I want to say that was Dope Man. I want to say it was one of their first cuts, but that was like early 90s, I believe. And eventually our women became B-words. I'm trying not to say the word on the show, but eventually our women became B-words and our men become N-words gratuitously throughout all of their music. And they started putting the stickers on the music to basically, I don't know what that was about, but I talked about them putting. I talked about them putting the stickers on the music on the records, but it wasn't about them actually keeping the kids from accessing the music. I think you get ready to touch on it, but they put the stickers on the CDs as a means. Oh my goodness. Help me, brother. But either way, it didn't stop the kids from buying them at all. The stickers was pretty much just a formality. But they started doing that. They started
good marketing too.
That too. So you're putting out more and more of this music with the gratuitous violence, the gratuitous drugs, the gratuitous subjugation of Black people. But you put more and more of these albums out, you just sticking these little stickers on them. And it was kind of like them playing in our faces. Because the music was getting worse, but meanwhile, the industry is basically pushing down groups like Public Enemy, Brand Nubian, Poor Righteous Teachers, all of the groups, De La Soul, Tribe Called Quest. Anybody that was putting out any positivity, if it was positive at all, it might not even been something that was militant. It might have just been positive music. Mm-hmm. But all of a sudden, the whole landscape is just littered with this B words, N words, and they're telling us at the same time that it's what we want. That it's something that we asked for. And never in my teenage years, even my early 20s, did anybody in my peer group ask if they stopped playing Public Enemy or if they stopped playing Brand Nubian for us. It just happened. And all of a sudden, they're telling us that's what we want. And so we're being programmed by them literally deciding what passes the buffet. Mm-hmm. So if you're putting out a buffet out of 10 different dishes and all of the dishes are pretty much terrible and bland, but you're hungry, you want to hear some music, you're going to choose from those 10 dishes. Mm-hmm. And so that's all we had to choose from. And so you fast forward to today, the radio, streaming services, on television, whatever they're playing during these basketball games, during the NFL games, it's pretty much what they tell us we choose. And all of it just happens to be the subjugation of Black people. No other group has music where their epitaphs are being used against them. N words, B words. You don't hear spick. You don't hear WAP. You don't hear gook. You don't hear any of that stuff on the radio, on television like that. But us and our tiny 14, 15% of the population, we get to hear N words and B words all over the radio, everywhere, all over streaming services, all over the television, all throughout these movies. And it's so bad. They've saturated it so much that me working in a Dallas school, I find myself in a high school not only telling the Black kids in my classroom to stop using the N-word in my classroom, but telling the white kids to stop calling each other N-words and stop calling Black kids N-words, and then checking Mexicans in Dallas restaurants, telling them to stop using the N-word as they talk to each other in booths behind me. And so N-word is, a lot of us want to say it's a term of endearment, but it's not, because you find themselves using that word in conversation where they're disrespecting one another. And it's so seeped into our subconscious. And I explained to a sister the other day that the first word that fly out of a man's mouth when he's angry at a sister is the B word.
Right.
It's like it's on autopilot. The first words that come out of the sister's mouth when she's angry at some brother and she's talking to her girls, that N-word, that N-word, that N-word. So I always ask, where's the love in the word if it's a term of endearment? It's only a term of endearment because we hear it in the music and we've been programmed to say it so much. We say the N-word, we say the B-word like breathing, like blinking. We don't even think about it. And I always use my personal testimony because it took me 3 years, like being intentional to stop using the N-word. Like I think I called one sister in my life a B-word and regretted it. And so just getting those words out of my not out of my vocabulary necessarily, but directing them towards my people. If your subconscious sees N-words and B-words every time you see Black people, there's a ceiling on the amount of love that you can direct towards your people. If you see N-words and B-words, there's literally a glass ceiling. When I stop using those words, I see Africans, I see cousins, I see family. I find more positive words to interface with my people with. Like the funny thing about it, when I'm standing around my people, all of my friends use N-word and B-word, again, like blinking and like breathing. And so I hear it and I'm extra sensitive to it. And they always look at me waiting for me to say something. I'm like, brother, y'all do y'all thing, but I do hear it. You know what I mean? And sometimes they correct themselves and sometimes they don't, but I respect the fact that they know that I'm listening and that it does impact me. And it kind of makes them think about it, especially in regards to I'm standing with my brothers and I'm calling sisters B words. Brothers, usually if they say it, they'll look at me and be like, man, my bad. But cats are thinking about it. You know what I mean? All it takes is one person, 2 or 3 people or whatever to try to change the narrative. You know what I mean?
Indeed. Great points, brother. Shout out to Sister Joyce Spencer, who is the ambassador of the Militant Mind Militia. Sister Joyce Spencer is present in the chat. She's the ambassador of the Militant Mind Militia, Durham, North Carolina. Shout out to her. But you mentioned about the origins of NWA. Mm-hmm. I think the first video was either Express Yourself. Yeah, the first video was Express Yourself. Mm-hmm. So they used the Trojan horse. They came in positive. Because Dr. Dre was saying, I don't smoke weed because that'd give a brother brain damage or something like that. So it was the first video to capture the Public Enemy crowd. They had no cuss words. Even on the album version, no cuss words. The first video that NWA did. I think Eazy-E's was earlier.
It wasn't Dope Man?
Huh?
It wasn't Dope Man?
I don't even remember a video for Dope Man.
Okay, Express Yourself was a cold song too. Like that was a great song.
It was conscious because you had Public Enemy. They had to use a Trojan horse technique to slip it in.
Yep.
And Dope Man was on the album, but the first single release, was either
Dope Man was a side B. It was a B-side cut.
The Gangsta.
I'm not sure what it was a B-side to, but I remember reading that it was a B-side cut. It was on the back or something.
Because I remember Gangsta because I was working in radio at the time. Mm-hmm. I was a little intern, and I was probably the first person in North Carolina to play Gangsta on the air. I ain't proud of that, but I was at Foxy 107, 1988, and I used to do a little program, a little show, and my job, see, back in the day, children, we actually had to dig into crates for real. Radio stations were obligated that if they would receive boxes of records every day, and you had to go through those records and listen to every single one. I know that's the job they gave the interns. I was the intern. So I pulled out a 45 record. Yeah, they used to have 45 records back in the day, and it was called Gangsta. I thought it sounded good. I'm 21, 22 at the time. So I programmed it. The program director stepped to me and said, don't you ever play that type of music on my station again.
What color?
I think it was old and out of touch. This was 88, 89.
Yeah, was the director an older guy, black?
He was black.
Okay.
Spence. He was out of New Orleans. He said that kids riding around killing each other off that music. I'm 21, 22 years old. He's probably in his 30s, mid-30s. I thought he was old and out of touch, but 2-3 years later, I began to understand. So I see how these young people say, oh, there's nothing wrong with it. I was fortunate. When I heard it's not that big a gap between 1988 and when I started going to the No Bookstore in 1992. Mm-hmm. I understood. But we had the black bookstores. We had the study groups that would bring young people in and put into context. We don't have that anymore to a large degree. We don't have the bookstores with the elders. You got to sit around the elders.
Yeah, it's tough out here. I was about to say something to what you just said. I always tell the kids to open up conversations that I was them. I'm still them. And I was a young, I was their age at one time. Mobb Deep still resonates with me. You know what I mean? I still love Mobb Deep. I rarely listen to him this day because I'm very discerning about what I feed my subconscious. And so every once in a while, I might go back and listen to a Mobb Deep song or even a whole album just because I used to love it and it still resonates with me. But I understand exactly what it is and the impact that it had on me when I was young and what the music is doing to our kids today. But I tell them I still rock with Mobb Deep. And so I would never tell the kids to stop listening to their artists. The job is to get them to understand and be conscious of what they're listening to so they can either curb their diet somewhat or just be a little bit more discerning about what they're listening to, or at least try to come out and balance it out a little bit. And not even just balance it out. at the end of the day, with what's going on in our communities, we need way more positive music. We can't afford to have it 25% negative music. We can't afford it. We need to have an overwhelming amount of positive music to change course of what's going on in our communities. Like it's a lot going on out there, but I still love the music, hip hop. The thing about Mobb Deep, and you speak about Trojan horses, Mobb Deep could rap their asses off. Like them dudes had lyrics. And Havoc's beats were otherworldly. And so today they've dumbed it down so much, and even Prodigy spoke to that before he passed away. They've dumbed the culture down so much that you don't even need to say anything. As long as you're saying N-word, B-word, date rape, do these drugs, drink this, go buy this, disrespect this dude, start a beef, shoot this up. You got an album, and the tracks, they all sound pretty much recycled. And that's the industry that did that to us a while ago too, and the schools. They took the instruments out of the schools, and the industry basically told our DJs or our producers, you can't sample unless you pay us millions of dollars for each sample that you use. So that affected the game a lot. And so now you have all these producers. Well, you have one producer for a whole team of rappers now. You don't have a DJ for each rapper or whatever. You just have one producer that literally has like 10 to 20 rappers. And they put out the same type of tracks. All the tracks sound the same. And all the artists talk. Huh?
I said mustard on the beat. Exactly. London on the beat. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, and all the artists are pretty much talking about the same thing. These quote unquote A&Rs, because the A&R is not even necessary today. They just go to YouTube and they find the most disoriented young men to basically come into a studio and say some nonsense for a bag of money. Mm-hmm. It will make you hot for a second and you're gone just like that, because it's so dumbed down that these quote unquote artists are a dime a dozen. Anybody can be a young thug. Anybody. Like, it doesn't take talent. It doesn't take a dope beat. It doesn't take any of the original elements of hip hop to become a hip hop artist. Just come out and degrade your people to a beat. That's it.
What did Mobb Deep say? There's a war going on outside. No man is safe from. Prodigy started talking about the Illuminati and all that stuff. And then he mysteriously died, allegedly choking on an egg.
Yeah, that was wild.
Allegedly.
And I don't use the term Illuminati too much. Yeah, I don't. Illuminati, we can see the people. Illuminati suggests that we can't see the people that are playing these games with us. We can see them. Okay. We know who they are. Yeah, it ain't nothing but a YouTube search. Not a YouTube, but a Google search. Read some books, and we can see all the people that are playing games with us.
I read Don Chalmers' book, The Big Payback. He names the corporations.
Oh, he
names the corporations. And yours. Hold it up, brother. Hold it up.
So people they definitely know.
Yeah, because you do like a web of who did what. Indeed. Mm-hmm. Indeed. So, but we're going to give all the contact information. I hope people will purchase your book. It's well worth the money, especially if you have children. Especially if you have children. And I told you, you have, and this is not being biased, you have one of the most outstanding, well-documented books on hip-hop ever released.
And I appreciate that, bro.
No, I mean that sincerely. Brother Randy said the first rap records, there was no cursing. Well, let's look at it this way.
The ones that were, I'm trying to think. Let me think. You couldn't put it out with cuss words. It wasn't gonna make the radio.
Was because of the FCC.
Yeah.
Those club tapes that the Cold Crush and them were doing back in the late 70s, early 80s, there was a lot of cussing and drug usage on those tapes.
Yeah, KRS-One, his first album, Criminal Minded.
Yeah.
Just Ice. What's his Schoolie D? These cats were cussing, but it wasn't as, there was always a street element to hip hop. At the very beginning, there was a street element because they talked about reality. They talked about what they saw, talked about our hoods, our neighborhoods, whatever. But there was more to our childhoods than what exists today in hip hop. And I hate when somebody says, "Oh, these kids are just talking about what they see." And I'm like, brother, I've worked in 50 schools in my life, just about. and maybe 1 out of 50 kids is on that life. You know what I mean? So what about the other kids? You know, what about what they're doing, what they think about? What about the directions they're going in? What about the things they want to see going on in the neighborhood? And even if you are about that life or living that life, don't you want to see it change? So why would you not talk about that? And so it's very useful for them to continue to do what they're doing. And the narrative now is, you know, even among the adults, 50-year-olds, you got 50-year-olds that are still paying to go see Nicki Minaj in concert, and then have their daughters listening to Nicki Minaj. And when they put that music on, with Nicki Minaj, she was on some video, and I think one of her songs came on, and her daughter was in the kitchen, and she either pushed her daughter out the kitchen to turn her music off just like that. Jeezy, young Jeezy, what's it, Snowman? What's his album? He talks about dope.
What motivation?
I forgot the name of the album, but all he talks about the Snowman. He talks about dope.
Yeah, Thug Motivation back in the day.
But you look up and his son is graduating college. You know what I mean? And so that ain't your life, bro. You know, but so why are you directing our kids in that? That's definitely not Jay-Z's life. Jay-Z don't even see us no more. You know, that dude's running around with Lawyer Cohen and all of them cats. All of these team owners and stuff like that. So he don't even see the streets no more. He doesn't see what he sees what he created, but he has no issue with it.
Yeah. But we're talking about, when we're talking about the early years of hip hop, a lot of that early hip hop, what you didn't hear on the radio, what you had to get off cassette tapes, what they were doing in the clubs, it wasn't that much different than what's being played now. The FCC in 1988 lacks their rules that you could play certain things on the radio. In 1982, when Grandmaster Flash and them, well, really Mellow Mel and Duke Booty. They say Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, but it's really Melly Mel and Duke Booty. They came out with the message. You couldn't even say piss on the radio. You couldn't say piss on the radio. They had to bleep it out. People on stage, you know, they just don't care. You couldn't say that on the radio. But if you listen to those early tapes of the Cold Crush, they were talking about drug use and getting high. If you go back and watch the movie Wild Style, they had guns. Double Trouble, formerly of the Funky 4+1 More. In Wild Style, they came on stage with fake guns. So people try to say Schoolie D brought the gangster in 1985. 85. And then Just Ice around 87. But there was a gangster element since the beginning. But it was seen as entertainment.
It was still hip hop.
It was hip hop.
It was still hip hop. You still had a DJ.
Like a lifestyle.
Exactly. And you still, at the same time, you had brothers talking about other stuff too. There was still some semblance of balance. You know, brothers coming out and putting out different messages. Even then, you had the beefs. You had cats beefing back then. Beefing on wax. That ain't nothing new. But now it's deadly now because we've devalued each other to the extent where taking each other's lives means nothing. And it's been like that for a while. I'm not going to say it just started in the last couple of decades, but from what I've observed, it's definitely getting worse. I've seen classrooms, put it like this, I've witnessed in my education career at least 3 different scenarios where a group of boys are raping a young lady and didn't think nothing of it, and recording it and sending it out on social media. I've lost at least 10 to 15 students to gun violence over the last 20 years. And so I'm seeing an uptick. I'm listening to the kids' discussions. I'm on the street still. You know, I still go out there. When I go to Chicago, I don't shy away from the South Side. I don't shy away from the West Side. I want to hear what's going on. I want to know what's going on. I want to touch down with the kids, as many as possible, to see what's going on. I still got kids from the last 20 years on my Facebook page that I still stay in contact with. And so I'm always listening and watching what they're posting, seeing what their attention is on, just to try to, you know, to see how do I want to put it, what's in style.
Right.
You know, what direction they're taking us in now. What do they have us thinking about now? And I simplify it, you know, you try to simplify it in conversations. How did my generation, how and why were we wearing Gucci? How and why? You know what I mean? Like Gucci is literally as ridiculously priced goods that don't have any more quality than anything else in the store. It's a white dude who's never set foot in the black community, never would. For decades, they never even promoted to us. They have no respect for us. They've even come out with clothing that disrespected black people. Mm-hmm. But we're so programmed in our heads that we have to have that as a measure of self-respect. A man thinks that having some G's on his belt makes him more attractive. A woman thinks that having a big belt, a $7,000 purse on her shoulder with G's all over it, it puts out a certain status. And it ain't nothing with a bag with some white man's initials on it. And even simplifying it like that, we still don't get it. You know what I mean? And I used to tell the kids, if your homie came out with a belt with his initials on it, let's say his name is Daryl Carruthers, DC, would you pay $400 for it? And I start that without even mentioning the Gucci comp. Before I even bring up Gucci, would you buy it? You know, you say you love your brother, right? You and your brother hang out every single day. But if I put his initials on the belt, same material, same leather, same chrome or whatever, would you pay $400 or $500 for the belt? Oh, hell no. I wouldn't buy that dude belt. I'm like, but you got a Gucci belt on though. And you don't even know that dude. That dude hates you. Mm-hmm. And so hip hop was also used, our art, TV, movies, hip hop, whatever, is also used to make us hyper consumers. Mm-hmm. And to put them people in our pockets. And we don't realize the impact of that. Like, why do you care about Gucci so much? Why do you care about Louis Vuitton so much? These people hate you. They showed Kanye what they thought about him. When he went up there to them fashion houses telling them that he had a means to give them more access to our money by designers and stuff to make it street or whatever. And they told him to get the hell out of here. We good. We already got your community. We don't need you. We been had your community. Mm-hmm. And so we literally at war. And it's like I start off my school, you're telling these kids, I want you to see everything in the context of war. If I meet a young lady, if I'm so intense or whatever, just understand that I see everything as war. And some of the things you don't even see, I'm seeing.
Right.
I mean, especially if we're watching TV or listening to the radio.
Indeed, brother. Let's see. Brother Dika said hip hop was created out of street culture. And I think he's referring to the Bambaataa age and the Black Spades and things that were going on in New York in the 1970s. I'm going to bring Adika on.
The Zulu Nation.
Hopefully Adika in the near future. And he can go into, because we had a conversation the other day, he was going into the Ghetto Brothers and a lot of early influences of hip hop before the Zulu Nation.
Okay.
Before the Zulu Nation. So good point. Sister Sharon, my Black Messiah sister Sharon said, it is ignorance indeed, sister, indeed. So I have my own theory, but I want to hear yours. You said 88 through 92, and that is the span I give for conscious hip hop as well, starting with Public Enemy and KRS-One. It takes a nation of millions to hold us back, and also self-destruction, or was it? Yeah, My Philosophy, Self-Destruction, that era. And 92. Why do you say, and I have my rationale, but why do you say the period ended in 92?
Why 92? Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think what's happening. I know that Wise Intelligent, what he asserts, and I kind of align a lot of my thoughts with that, is that they saw that our kids were being politicized. And what's that? The Kerner Commission. Basically why the kids were rioting, why they were tearing stuff up after Rodney King was beaten.
The Kerner Commission was in the 60s.
Yeah, but it was the same. It still had the same impact. Our kids were being politicized. Our kids were being politicized after the 60s, the 70s, what's that? Late 70s, early 80s, our kids were being politicized through hip hop. I remember what's it? Boogie Down Productions. Mm-hmm. Was it edutainment, sexutainment?
He had Sex and Violence and he had edutainment.
Them two albums, bro. Man. I'm talking about on repeat. But they believe that our kids, and I can't really point to an exact incident that made them weaponize our music, but definitely there was our kids were politicized. Our kids are wearing African medallions, Whenever there was a shooting or something happened in the hood, our kids reacted the way they were supposed to react. And so fast forward to today, you see the juxtaposition of what they're doing today when babies are killed in our neighborhood, babies. I'm talking about infants. And our gangs used to have a code. If you shot a baby, you got dealt with as a gang member. But now you got a rash of babies being killed in our neighborhoods, and there's really no reaction to it. Whereas back then, if you killed a baby, you was going to get dealt with. If you were the police and you shot a woman in the face in her home, something was going to go down. It seemed like it's already been swept. When was the last time you heard Sonia Massey's name? Beyond your circles, beyond your immediate circle. Poof. Just like that. Shot in the face by a 6'5" white boy in her home. 3 bullets in the face. How are we quiet? How are we not angry? And so we've been depoliticized. We literally have been rendered dumbed down, ignorant, like they said. Whereas back then, if they'd have kept making the music, Public Enemy, BDP, if we were still politicized by that music, we would be tearing shit up, just like our kids did a couple of years ago, as they were supposed to. But my generation was screaming at the kids, telling them to stop tearing up our neighborhoods, and you all are acting ignorant, when the kids basically were serving as the voice of the voiceless. They were doing what they were supposed to be doing. We got to politicize those kids and give them a direction, but that's a rational response to people shooting you in the face.
Right.
If somebody shot my mother in the face, I'm going nuts. You're not going to be able to control me. I see all of these black women as my moms, my sisters, my nieces, my aunties, my grandmama. And so if you shoot them in the face, we're supposed to react angrily. That is natural. If you go into if a brother goes into a white neighborhood, or 3 or 4 brothers goes into a lily white neighborhood and shoots a baby in the face, what's going to happen? Whereas if you come into our neighborhood and do the same thing, ain't Zimmerman still walking around?
He is.
Making hundreds of thousands of dollars?
Mm-hmm.
How? But you got all these cats on the radio talking about they thugged out and they gang members, murking each other, but Zimmerman is still walking around. And so they've dumbed us down to the extent where we just out here, brother, reacting. But to answer your question, I think it was a response to us being properly politically oriented. Mm-hmm. We weren't necessarily that the books, the songs made me want to read the books. Because I didn't have an adult in my life to tell me to start reading, honestly, till I was like my late 20s and 30s. I sat down and had one conversation, the brother turned my light on. But in terms of the music, like, it was right there, bro. And it was telling us what to read. It was telling us what ancestors to look up. And listening to Chris's albums, I felt ignorant. I'd have to rewind stuff. What did he just talk about? Who was he just talking about? I ain't never heard of that dude. And so I'm in college listening to this stuff like I don't even know who these people are. And so it made you want to be smarter. It made you want to learn your history. It made you want to respect your ancestors. And so now with the direction the music is in now, you can't even let me stop. But that's my answer though. Now, if you can point to a specific incident, my mind is half dulled right now from my work day, but I can't point to a specific incident right now. But I definitely saw a stark change from quadruple platinum selling Public Enemy to NWA being blown up overnight. Even in the last decade, before they made a Public Enemy movie for us to watch, they made an NWA movie for us to watch. Mm-hmm. Why? Like, for what? I think Public Enemy's story is a whole lot more interesting than NWA's, especially in terms of what we need right now.
Yeah, but if you tell Public Enemy's story, you got to talk about Griff. And they're still not ready for that conversation.
True that.
They're still not ready to have the Professor Griff conversation. I wrote in Griff's book, I wrote the last chapter of his book. But yeah, they're still not ready to have Professor Griff, the Professor Griff conversation. They can't tell the story without mentioning Griff, and they don't want to talk about Griff.
Well, he need to have a conversation about him being an ambassador for the United States. No.
Cool.
Chuck D. I love Chuck. Chuck D to death. Like, that was one of my first, well, after Malcolm X, of course. But in terms of hip hop, one of my teachers. I consider him one of my teachers in terms of hip hop. But he's running around with Lawyer Cohen and who's the Secretary of State for this country? I can't think of his name right now. Deadly dude. Anyway, over our foreign policy. I can't think of his name right now. It's somebody in the chat might know it. the Secretary of State, but he took a picture with Lawyer Cohen and our current Secretary of State, and he's serving as a cultural ambassador for the United States, traveling the world.
But I know you didn't mean Griffith, so I wanted to clear that up.
No.
That ain't happening. But yeah, but actually, you know, I respect Chuck as well. He used to read my articles on his show, and actually, I gave Public Enemy Griffiths with him. I put together the plan to give Public Enemy the key to the city when they came to Durham back in 2006. So, real good brothers. But if you look at the whole State Department situation, that's a lot of people. When you start talking about going to foreign countries, you can go back to the Harlem Globetrotters. They did the same thing.
Anthony Blinken is his name. Anthony Blinken is the Secretary of State. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. They, you know, Harlem Globetrotters, they were used by the United States to put a better face on United States so-called democracy.
Do you remember their uniforms?
Oh,
what color were their uniforms?
Oh, red, white, and blue.
Yeah, the Harlem Globe.
Red, white, and blue. Yeah. Was it Louis Armstrong, I think, or was it Cab Calloway? Cab Calloway.
Ambassador.
Yeah, one of them.
That was Louis Armstrong.
Yeah,
it was Louis Armstrong.
Which one was allegedly a performer the night Lumumba got kidnapped? Was it Cab Calloway or Louis Armstrong?
I think it was Louis Armstrong. I think it was Louis. We have to, I can check, but I think it was Louis. Though.
Research that because people don't like to talk about that. But yeah, but I respect, for the record, you know, I respect Public Enemy. Why people do the things they do, I don't know.
But I still love Chuck, and if he come out with an album, I'm still gonna listen to it. I'm still gonna buy it and support it. But I do want to. I would like him to expound on that for us, because the picture that he took or whatever it raised my eyebrows a little bit. He don't owe us nothing, but I still kind of want to know what's to it.
Yeah, just questions.
Yeah.
My Black Messiah sister, Cheryl Smith said, "Preach, brother." Okay, she's listening.
Peace, sister.
I knew Sharon would know. You were just saying Anthony Blinken.
Yeah, Anthony Blinken. Yeah, he's a clown.
Yeah, but in the last few, because I know you had a long day, and I try to keep these an hour. When I keep them an hour, people will come back. Yeah, bring the brother back. We didn't hear enough of the brother. So, you know, the brother's been real open to coming on, so we can always bring the brother back.
Yes, sir.
Especially if you buy his book. I appreciate you.
You're one of the most dedicated brothers that I know. So if you ask me to come on the show, you probably will not get a no from me.
I appreciate you.
Because I see you doing the work, and man, thank you.
But really, y'all should get that book for real. Y'all should really get that book. Brother, give out hold it up in front of, yeah. Who Stole the Soul? The Weaponization of Hip Hop. Give out your contacts, your website, all that good stuff.
In terms of purchasing the book, it's distributed by the devil, Amazon, but I prefer you purchase it from me. If you purchase the book, you decide to go to StatusKnow, StatusKnow, StatusKnow.com, and you can purchase the book there, and I'll get it out to you. It usually doesn't take but about a week and a half to get to you, but you can definitely purchase it there. And check Clear the Airways Project on your social media, Clear the Airways Project, and also Nubian Leadership Circle on your social media.
Okay. Brother, talk about you got children's books too, brother. Don't forget.
Man. I Am books. I made a I Am book for boys. I'm not gonna get up. I Am book for boys and an I Am book for girls that basically introduces. I'm a history teacher, and both of those books introduce our children ages middle school, preferably from 6th to 8th grade, to revolutionary ancestors and movements that they will never hear about in these schools. In elementary school, high school, college, whatever things that I've gone through. I read these curriculums. I've been in these classes. They, on purpose, don't teach us about our revolutionary ancestry. They don't want us to know about them. So I was very intentional about putting people in those books that they never hear about. And I included a couple that people know about, some luminaries, but for the most part, it's 95% ancestors that our kids will never know about until they read about them. And there's beautiful pictures in there. I've had a lot of people buy classroom sets for the 6th to 8th graders too. And it's written in kind of poetic stanzas, but I just want our kids to be immersed in those names, in those movements, so they can be introduced to them and they can never say that they never heard of this person, they never heard of this movement.
Indeed. And again, thanks to Sister Veronica, I put a lot of those books on the street.
Thank you. Yo, Ronnie, appreciate you.
How about your merch, brother? Don't forget your merch.
Oh, it's there. You know, when I direct them to my website, all the merch is there. This is one of my shirts here. Malcolm was right. I got Asada was right. Baldwin was right. I got a whole bunch of stuff on that way. I got at least 100, probably 150 hoodies and T-shirts and hats and stuff on the website with revolutionary messages and cultural messages and images on them, along with the books. All 3 books on there as well. Statusno.com.
Statusno.com. That's K-N-O-W.
Status K-N-O, no W's.
Gotcha.
Yeah. STATUSKNO.com. No W.
Do this. When we get off, inbox me all that information. I'll put it under the video.
Will do.
Yeah, all the contact. Because I'm sure people want more information. Hey, do you go out and lecture as well, brother?
I do. I just came out of after COVID, I had to find a job. So I was in a lull for a minute, but I just went to a Curb Fest in DC and I made a whole bunch of contacts. So I'll be back out here, and I just talked to a Miss Robinson. She might be on here now, Sparkle Robinson. But I told her.
Out of DC? Yeah. With the website. Yeah. Good sister.
Yeah, I talked to her, and she said she might have some contacts for me to get back out there because I don't want to get too rusty. I got to get in these community centers and these schools.
Yes, sir.
But in the meantime, I'm in the school, so whatever classes I have, they're going to be catching the same conversation. So.
Indeed. Brother Rafiq.
Oh, what's up, Rafiq?
Has just checked in. Peace, Brother Rafiq.
Oh, I thought that was my brother in Chicago.
Yeah, this Brother Rafiq out of Durham.
Okay, good evening, brother.
The activist in Durham. So, brother, I am honored again. Hopefully we'll have you again because, we could never cover all this in an hour, 2 hours, us exchanging information. We only made it to 1992. We only made it to 1992. We got 30 more, almost 30 more years to cover.
Yeah, so, I kind of tuned out of hip hop. About 2000, I just lost interest. And I DJ a little bit or whatever, and I just didn't want to listen to none of that stuff after a while. And you become a grown man and you see exactly what it is. Once you realize exactly what it is, it's the same thing for me, not to get on the soapbox, but I find it very difficult to watch the NFL. Not even just with Kaepernick, but just the fact that kind of amplified it for me. But you got all these black men. Kaepernick was lynched by himself. And I think one of his homies went down with him. And none of those other black men in the NFL stood up with that brother. And so I'm always imagining, what if all of these brothers stood up with Kaepernick and did what he did? The NFL would have had no choice but to meet their demands. And so I just always look at that. What if that expanded across the board to all the sports leagues, to Hollywood, wherever we are, wherever we're making these people all of this money? What if it just expanded to that where we just walked out? And the NFL could have been so powerful a message if they would have stood with their brother. But they failed. They wimped out. And so watching, it's kind of like I just feel like I'm just watching a bunch of boys because none of them can really stand up as men and speak for their people. I'm off my soapbox now, but you just brought me to that.
That opened up a whole discussion. We'll probably do that in another show, but we don't stand up for people. Who stood up for Professor Griff in 1989? Who stood up for Sister Soldier in 1992?
Yes, indeed.
A few people, but most people ran and hid.
Yep, turn their backs on them. Much respect to both of them.
Yeah, Sister Soldier. Ice-T, he got a better gig being a cop, but
did you notice though the preponderance of black men and black women that play cops or FBI agents or CIA agents on television. Like the most popular movie, Bad Boy. How many installments of that movie did they make? Beverly Hills Cop with Eddie Murphy. How many installments of that? It got real corny after a while, and they still kept putting them out while these cops are shooting us in the face and putting knees on our necks and choking us out for cigarettes and CDs. We're playing cops on television.
It's called propaganda.
Yes, sir.
There's a book, I forgot the author, called FBI's, EYES, FBI's. And he goes into the early propaganda machine where they try to make movies, influence movies to put the FBI with J. Edgar Hoover in a good light, called FBI's. Good research.
I'm on it. Well, you gave me 2 different books to look up, so I appreciate that.
But that is the purpose of the militant mind militia. That is the purpose of the militant mind militia. We're based in Durham, North Carolina, but anybody who wants to join the militant mind militia in your city, just contact me. Black Hoodie Brigade, just brothers and sisters spreading knowledge. So I want to shout you out, brother. Again, gratitude, gratitude, gratitude for being on. And don't forget to send me a inbox or a DM, as they would say, with your information. I'll put it under the video. And I want to shout out the Black Messiahs who are on tonight. I want to shout out the Militant Mind Militia. I want to shout out the Black Hoodie Brigade and everybody else who is watching and will watch this show. But brother, it's been an honor. Knowledge is power. Weaponized knowledge. Knowledge is a weapon. Let's get it.
Love,
Peace,
bro. Yes, sir.